Now for the most beautiful panelist and inductee. You know, Miesha looks more like a supermodel than a girl who could beat up everybody in the room. First time I saw her fight, I go, before she was going to fight, I said, why does somebody look so pretty getting in the ring with these animals? And she is a remarkable, remarkable athlete. American professional mixed martial artist. She currently competes in the women's bantam division of the UFC, of which she is a former women's UFC world champion. She was formerly the Strikeforce world champion, the bantamweight, and she also captured the 135-pound championship of bantamweight in the freestyle cage fighting as well. She defeated Holly Holm via technical submission due to a rear neck choke in the 5th round to become the new UFC bantam champion. She has also won numerous other fights and won 3 Performance of the Night awards. A remarkable, remarkable female athlete, tough as nails, bright, articulate. She's got the whole package. Let's give it up for Miesha Tate.
Oh my goodness, this thing's really heavy. Might not be heavy, you made it look easy, but no surprise. It is really my pleasure and honor to be inducted tonight with such an amazing panel of people. I want to start with my thank yous. First, I would like to thank Dr. Bob and Hack Fairfax. Thank you so much, especially he had to really track me down. I am not an easy person to get a hold of, so I know I put you through the ringer, but thank you for thinking of me and bringing me here today. I really appreciate it. The International Sports Hall of Fame, I think what you guys do, what you stand for, the work that you do in the community is incredible. So I'm really glad to be here in some way representing that. I would also like to thank my parents, especially my mom, for raising me to not take no for an answer and to never segregate myself. I would like to say a huge thank you to my fiance, Johnny, over there. See that handsome man holding the camera on me? He is the framework to everything that I do. And it's so nice to have a supportive partner. As many of you know, when you have that person in your life who really stands by you, supports you, pushes you, keeps you on time to things, or at least in my case, that would be something that he does on the regular. And also a great father to our 2 children, which brings me to the next point. I would like to thank my children because they have given more to me than they could ever know. I have a 6-year-old daughter named Amaya and a 4-year-old son named Daxton, and they're just the most incredible little people on the planet, and they're a huge part of my reason why I do what I do and why I try to keep elevating and being the best version of myself. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my backstory and maybe how I got to this position. I started wrestling when I was a freshman in high school, and it wasn't because I set out to wrestle. I never was a big contact sports person. I didn't watch fighting. I didn't have older brothers. I don't have a history of anybody wrestling or doing contact sports in my family. So people were like, why would you do that? Well, it really came down to I didn't want to play basketball. That was the honest truth. I didn't want to play basketball, and it was the only women's sport offered during that season, but I wanted to play a sport. So my friend Sharon came up with this brilliant idea, why don't we go out for the wrestling team? I said, well, they don't have women wrestling on the wrestling team. And she said, yeah, well, I guess it turns out, though, that if they don't have the women there, we can do it on the men's team. And I said, well, that's a crazy idea. And I went home, I asked my mom. Thank you, Mom, for not telling me no, because I know I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't go out for wrestling that very next day. She said to me, well, I'm not going to tell you you can't. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. She's like, I'm not sure you're going to like it, but let me know how it turns out for you. So I went the next day, and to say that I got annihilated would be an understatement. I got my butt kicked, and it was very clear that the guys there, not bad guys, they just shared the sentiment of most people that women did not belong on the mat at that time. So they tried to get me to quit, but I took great pride in the fact that they could not make me quit. And I remember thinking, after that first day, even before that first day, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I stuck with it for 4 years. I'll be honest, I didn't win matches against males. I was too late in the game. They were too physically advanced, and I'm not a tiny girl. I was never going to be 103 pounds, maybe. No, that wasn't me. So I thought, what's the worst going to happen? Well, I found out. I got, my butt kicked, and I stuck with it, and by the end of 4 years, I won the Coaches Award, and to date, this is one of my most proud accomplishments, because it was given out to a single athlete on the team that kind of embodies what you would want out of a wrestler and a teammate. And I never thought on that first day, or even that first season, that the entire team would come around to embrace me in a brotherhood as an equal. So for me, that was such an important lesson to learn as a young woman, as a young girl. Now we'll bring you to my first day of college. I meet my friend Rosalia. She's in the same dorm as me, and she says, hey, do you want to come to this mixed martial arts club sport that they have here at the college? And I said, no, thank you. And it's so funny how little we know about ourselves sometimes. I really thought that I had no interest in mixed martial arts. I sure did not have any interest in getting hit, nor did I have any interest in hitting anybody else. But she was persistent, and destiny found its way to me once again. And I said, okay, I will humor you, I'll go one time. And I showed up, and on my very first day, I learned how to choke people. And as you could guess, I was hooked. And I thought, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, 3 weeks later, I found myself in my very first fist fight. Gloved up, taped up, and I won the first round. I did not win the second round. Lack of preparation. You know that anything that you want to do and do well, you should prepare for. I didn't have that opportunity. I jumped in so quick to the sport that I got put in a Muay Thai clinch, and for those of you that know what that is, some pretty nasty knees came flying at my body and my face, one of which broke my nose, lost a lot of blood, and I was winning again by the end of the second round, but we go into the third round, and my coaches say, we're not letting you go back out there. They look like ghosts. Probably had never seen a female take this kind of damage. But I knew in that moment that a fighter had been born. I didn't exactly understand what I was going to go through and showing up in that moment, but I understood afterwards what I needed to do to be more prepared for the next moment. So I went on to win my next 6 fights, and then I got the call, or I said my coach got the call, hey, we're looking for a professional female, so this time I was amateur, professional female fighter to come to Evansville, Indiana, and do this tournament. And I thought, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? We go there. I win the first fight. Second fight, I get knocked out with a head kick, and I'm talking out, cold, couldn't even remember my first fight. So I found out what the worst thing that could happen. It's the theme of this story. And I go home, I regroup, I revamp. I move on to win the Strikeforce Women's title. Then I lose that title via a very gruesome armbar. And then the UFC calls and says, we want women to come to the UFC. I'm like, of course, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm making a career out of this at this point. And I continued on. I lost fights, I won fights. I finally got to the point where I had an opportunity to fight Holly Holm, and I win with a 5th round submission. And I guess in that part, in that highlight, in that moment, and as I continued my career forward from there, I found out that when you are not afraid of the worst thing that can happen, you will find out what the best thing is that can happen. And I think that would be my closing note here, is just to remember, we have to take risk. We have to take chances. We have to accept failure as a part of learning and a part of the journey. And when you do that, you're sure to find out what you're made of, and you're most likely to find out what the greatest things are in life. So thank you again for having me today. I'm so honored to have this reward, and now I'll let it move on to the next. Thank you, guys.
Zajímá tě zákulisí UFC a profesionálního MMA? Chceš vidět, co dělají zápasníci mimo oktagon a gymy, ve kterých trénujou? Dej mi odběr, mi to hodně pomůže a hlavně mi to dá motivaci natáčet další videa.